It's a great joy to be with everyone again on this week where we're launching the book, Consciousness is All There Is. Thank you for joining us and thank you for participating. It's wonderful to have you all. We have received some questions and I'm happy to look at those questions together with you. And the first question is the most basic, obvious question. What is consciousness? Because we're saying consciousness is all there is. So what is that consciousness? Most people imagine that consciousness is something that is produced by the brain. Actually, what we are saying is the brain is needed to experience something that's already there, to experience consciousness. So this is turning things around in the sense that we feel that if we damage the brain, consciousness goes away, therefore the brain creates consciousness. I usually take the analogy of a radio. You take a radio or a TV, whatever, and you turn it on and then you can tune into different stations and listen to different aspects of the waves that are around, that are picked up by the radio and that are diffused or transmitted and transduced from electromagnetic waves into sound waves, and you hear the music. Obviously, the music is produced in a studio somewhere and it's channeled through either cables or through the air, through electromagnetic waves, and the radio picks up those sounds, those actual vibrations or electromagnetic fluctuations, and change them into sound waves, and that's how you hear the music. So whereas the radio is necessary to pick up the waves and listen to the music, it is not itself the origin of the music. It is not itself that produces the music. And therefore, the brain is the same in this understanding. It is quite a complex structure which is able to pick up something from that ocean, which is the field of consciousness. So consciousness basically is a field. It's a field means like an ocean, but it is not material. It's not, of course, water. It's not anything physical. It is something that is permeating everything. Like an electromagnetic field is a field that permeates everywhere and it has different fluctuations. And you can then experience different aspects of that ocean through different aspects of structure and dynamics of physical, in this case, activity, which is itself is consciousness. And the book explains in detail how all of this happens and why it happens and how do we experience consciousness and how we can experience bigger and bigger values of consciousness, which means you improve your radio and start detecting more and more of the waves. If you have a very sophisticated television that you have at home, then it is much more complex than a radio, and it can detect more of what is there in the air in terms of waves and electromagnetic waves. And you can imagine that you can expand yourself to pick up all possible waves in the present or in the past or in the future. That's what we call intuition and the ability to develop one's thinking and have broad comprehension. That simply means that your system is able to detect and feel and experience more of what is already available in this field of consciousness. So consciousness is a field. It is not material. It is the essence of everything. And there is the absolute consciousness, which is independent of any physical entity, any brain, any special detector, and yet it can be experienced and perceived in different ways and colored in different ways by the machinery that you have that is having different levels of sophistication or clarification or clarity, being able to detect different aspects of that field of consciousness. So this was actually the second question, how to differentiate between consciousness and as a whole and awareness. So consciousness is that field, and we pick up different aspects of that field. Awareness is what you are aware of in that field. So there is the big consciousness with a big C, a capital C, and there is awareness, which is consciousness of the individual being directed to specific aspects of what is available in that field. So there is also, of course, we can say individual consciousness. And individual consciousness is how much your ability to experience is. So you can have a broad ability to experience different states of consciousness. You have the ability to have your attention go on something. If you are, let's say, a doctor, at the same time you're a musician, at the same time you are a parent, at the same time you can drive a car or fly a plane or something like that. All of these aspects are part of your consciousness as the ability to do these things. But now when you direct your attention towards, for example, seeing a patient, if you're a doctor, or let's say playing an instrument, then when you are playing an instrument, your awareness, your mode of functioning is directed towards a specific value of what your consciousness has. So your consciousness has all of these values, but your awareness is directed towards the specific value, playing the music. Or if you are looking at your friend, you are a friend. Now your awareness, the awareness of a friend. Now your awareness is the awareness of a doctor. Now your awareness is the awareness of a physician. So all of these different functions are part of what constitutes your consciousness, your ocean of yourself. And they are allowing you to direct your awareness according to the situations and circumstances to different projects, different activities, different relations, and like that. So we go through different levels of awareness. For example, in sleep, we don't lose consciousness in sleep, actually. This is by the definition that we bring in our consciousness is all there is, where in sleep we are conscious. The body is conscious. It has all of these values that we talked about are still there. They are not lost, but they are lost from awareness. So during sleep we are not aware that we are this or that or the other, but our subliminal consciousness, that value which is more profound and more englobing, that defines our individuality, is still there. It still has all of these values present in it, and only they get awakened, and therefore that's what we say, our attention goes on it, or we become aware of one or the other aspect of consciousness. So the other question is about scientifically being able to measure consciousness. Can we measure consciousness scientifically? Consciousness is not something material. So you cannot put it on a scale, you cannot check it in an electron microscope or in a telescope or any instrument directly. What you can do is measure the effects of consciousness. So you can see the effects of consciousness. For example, when you practice transcendental meditation, you transcend, you go deeper within yourself, and your consciousness expands, which means your awareness actually now is fathoming bigger aspect of its reality until it experiences its full value. So your awareness experiences full consciousness, which is pure consciousness. And there we see that this leads to changes in your physiology. You are healthier, your behavior is better, and also subjectively you feel happier, you feel fuller, you feel more clear. And that has an influence on society, because when a group of people practice these technologies together, they expand their awareness and they change the collective consciousness, and we see that this leads to a reduction in crime, reduction in conflict. So yes, we can measure the effects of consciousness, we can know it is there, although we cannot actually put our hands on it. It's like love, for example. Can you measure love? You can't measure love by itself. It's a feeling, it's a subjective feeling. But you can measure the effects of love. Maybe you blush, maybe your heart rate increases, maybe your brainwave become more coherent, your heart is full, you feel, you can ask the person how they feel and subjectively check their experiences. So yes, you can measure indirectly consciousness, but itself consciousness is not amenable to an instrument or to be measured in an instrument way. Now the question, do you feel the brain plays a role in the experience of consciousness? Of course it does, absolutely it does. The difference is we don't say that the brain creates consciousness. What we say is, depending on the clarity, the balance of the brain and the nervous system, you can experience different qualities of consciousness, different aspects of consciousness. For example, when you sleep, your brain goes into very slow wave functioning, and certain parts of the brain shut up, and therefore your awareness is no more able to fathom the whole field of your own consciousness. And therefore, this is what I call in the book, I also call them different patterns of the functioning of consciousness. So there is a structure that has all is there, and there are different patterns of functioning. So for example, your computer has many softwares in it, and now you are using one software. So the other software is sitting there, but it's quiet, and now you activate that one software that plays music, or that software that is word processor that you can type letters on it, or that software that allows you to use emails. So these are different things. You can say they are sitting there in the making of the computer, but you bring out one aspect or the other, and that is how in our physiology also, as we started saying, you can bring out this part or bring out that part of awareness or functioning, and that's how the brain actually, of course, plays a very important role in the experience of consciousness. And if you damage some part of the brain, then some aspects of the experience go away. It's like when you damage, for example, an aspect of the radio that we talked about, then maybe this particular wavelengths you can't hear anymore. You just can't hear only those other wavelengths, maybe long wave or short wave or FM radio, whatever. These are the different analogies, of course, to explain how the physical part at the same time plays a role, but it's not the generator, the actual creator of that part. Yes, another question is about consciousness exists outside of the physical body. Absolutely. Consciousness is all permeating, and even the bundle of what we call our own consciousness remains there, even if the body is dropped. But our ability to experience it in this body is actually lost if the brain is damaged or if the body drops. And therefore, yes, the bundle of dynamics of consciousness that constitute who we are remains, but the awareness can go away if the body goes away. How does consciousness relate to emotions and thoughts? This is another question. Emotions and thoughts are colors in consciousness. And that is, again, brings us to the idea of awareness and the different abilities to activate different modes of our own consciousness. So our own consciousness, therefore, has all of these facets, all of these dynamics. It has the ability to be happy, to be angry. It has the ability to be depressed. It has the ability to be joyful, to feel flourishing, to be creative. And ultimately, when we transcend initial primary ocean of being that we are. And so it really depends on at which level we are experiencing and what our awareness is experiencing. And therefore, when we have, for example, an emotion, say love, then we say love is a color in consciousness, a special color in the awareness in consciousness. Happiness is a special color of consciousness. So how does consciousness relate to emotions? It is through the fact that our consciousness takes then that particular shape, that particular form, that particular quality, that particular filter, which we call happiness. So all of these are colors and shapes and shades and flavors of consciousness. Because if consciousness goes away, where is the emotion? That's very important to realize and remember. When consciousness goes away, there is no sense of anything, no sense of pain, no sense of fear, no sense of happiness, no sense of joy, no sense of hope or future or past or present, sense of well-being, nothing. If consciousness goes away, emotions don't exist. So all that we live, all that we experience is in consciousness. That's why consciousness is primary, and that's why it's important to be able to awaken within our consciousness those values that actually allow us to grow and feel better and be happy, and actually let the other values settle down and kind of go away. Those that are not feeling good, that are not supporting us in our well-being and our flourishing. And it's the same with thoughts. Thoughts come as a color in consciousness, as an experience within consciousness. So that's why we differentiate actually the mind, the intellect, the ego, and the senses from the field of consciousness. The field of consciousness is all permeating, but it can now take a shape or take an experience or work in a mode where you sense the self. Yes, I am now conscious of myself. I am aware that I exist. I am aware who I am, what's my name, what's my job, what's my reality. And though my awareness then of this small self is a flavor within consciousness, is my consciousness and my awareness going to that flavor. Now if I say I'm analyzing a mathematical problem, or I'm thinking what should I do in the future, how do I solve this problem or this relationship, what do I do, and you start analyzing that. All of this is a way and a mode of functioning of consciousness in which I am conscious of things that I am seeing, of things that I am considering, and I am comparing them and seeing what is better and what is not. And that is what we call intellect. So the intellect is a mode of functioning of consciousness. Or I can sit and have thoughts and experience this thought and that thought going away and coming back without necessarily analyzing it. Just I'm getting all these mind things that we call thoughts. And then when we have this kind of thinking right and left and thoughts come without necessarily analyzing or dissecting or comparing, we call this the mind. So all of these, mind, intellect, ego, sense of self, all are just modes of consciousness. So the question, what are some misconceptions about consciousness? I think we covered some of that, and some of that is simply the idea that consciousness is created by something physical. And that is what they call the theory of emergence of consciousness, as if consciousness emerges from the nervous system. And people think that because obviously they say, okay, if I damage the nervous system, consciousness goes away, therefore it's the nervous system that is creating consciousness. But remember the analogy of the radio, which is very important. If you damage the radio, you don't get the music. But the music, somebody whose radio is not damaged, they can still hear the music. So the music is not gone, it doesn't go away. It's just that this radio is not able to experience consciousness, and that's how it works. Higher states of consciousness, how do they impact our daily activity, our daily lives? This also we go through in the book in great detail, where we show and I describe in great detail the different levels of consciousness and their importance. First, for how we feel, how great we feel, the level of happiness we have, the level of fulfillment we have, simply because we are no more limited and bound by situations and circumstances. We are liberated, we are free from limitations, we are free from smallness, we are free from boundaries, and that gives a feeling of liberation. In fact, in Sanskrit and the ancient traditions of yoga, they actually call it liberation, a state where we are liberated from the boundaries of smallness, and that's called moksha, or also enlightenment, where you become enlightened. Now, this is on the level of direct personal experience. But the whole development of consciousness is not only for feeling good here and there or for a few minutes. It's actually showing, as we said, the results of the development of consciousness, where we have greater clarity, greater creativity, ability to think and behave in accordance with the evolutionary power of the laws of nature, and actually be more fulfilled on the outer values of life. So it does help us to achieve more, to achieve our desires, to fulfill our desires, and to be more in life through the development of consciousness. So the development of consciousness has very practical levels, and the higher the level of consciousness, the more there is happiness, the more there is fulfillment, and the more we influence in a positive way without having to try to influence. We are naturally creating an individual who is ourself in this case, that lives in a higher state, and that higher state radiates to the collective consciousness and helps the environment actually to be better. And it helps if more of people practice these technologies and rise in consciousness, then you have more and higher level of consciousness on the collective level, and that leads to better behavior on the social level, so that even people who don't practice these technologies of consciousness themselves, because they are now based in a very balanced, clear, and peaceful environment, then naturally they do and have better behavior themselves. That's how we see reduction in crime, accidents of the road are reduced, even hospital admissions and infant mortality, things that we think are not correlated or not connected with each other. They actually all improve together when the collective consciousness improves. And one more thing which is really interesting, that is really fabulous, and is the experience of all those who practice transcendental meditation regularly, is that they get what we call support of nature. Support of nature means when you act from a level which is in tune with the laws of nature, things happen to you that you didn't really expect. And that's what people call luck and good luck, and doors open for you, you want to achieve something, you get some help from unexpected places, you want to connect with somebody, they connect with you, you want them to do something, they've already thought to do it for you. This is really what we call luck and support from the environment. So all of these are very powerful effects in our daily life due to the development of consciousness. There is a question about what research or studies have influenced my views on consciousness. And I go through actually this in great detail in the book, because the book brings together the empirical, which means the scientific, well-controlled studies and understanding about the nature of life and the nature of reality. So there are the scientific research on transcendental meditation and its advanced techniques. And we have 9 volumes now, big volumes, huge scientific research that has been done from every angle. But also even the study of the physical world itself that led scientists to go from the gross values and see what is it made of, what is my body made of, what's the planets made of, what is the world, the universe made of, and going deeper from the molecular level, molecules, into atoms, into elementary particles, into fields, and finding that ultimately there are 4 fields that can be more and more unified, and coming to this unified field. So that is directly from the most objective level of research that shows that ultimately the whole universe is based on a field that is unified, which we call unified field, and there are theories that describe that, the superstring theory or M2 theory, whatever, different advanced theories that show how everything is unified in one field. So that is also has led to the question, how does this relate, or what is it in reality? So there is that unifying power, there is the empirical research, there is the explanatory power of the thought about consciousness as being primary. So all of these logics together, what I have learned from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and his wisdom and understanding of nature, all of these came together to convince me about the nature of life and the nature of consciousness. And that really brings us to the next question, which is, how does ancient philosophy and modern science relate to that? And that is really the same, because in ancient philosophies, all those that call themselves idealists, which means those that feel that there is more abstract reality at the essence of nature, at the essence of infinite, unbounded being as a primary value, rather than physical energy and physical material. And so there are the physicalists, which say that everything starts from physical energy, and there are the idealists that say no, it must start from some field which is a field of consciousness. And particularly, for example, in the ancient Vedic literature, this was the most ancient expressions of this value. There is what they call Advaita Vedanta, which is the fullness of Veda, the end of all knowledge about Veda, about knowledge itself, and that is the unifying value that says that actually consciousness is all there is. So that title really is being expressed by all idealists. So you have, different philosophers that then followed up from the Vedic knowledge. I don't know if they copied it or they just had the intuition. Most likely they had the intuition, but it's all the same. For example, Plato was an idealist. Socrates, they were thinking that ideas precede objects, and forms precede, and structures are higher values and more important than the surface value. In recent modern times, you have Spinoza, who was a great philosopher, that actually said that everything is the expression of the one being, one consciousness. He gave it different names, but he really also expressed similar things. So these philosophies, of course, are there. They have their own angles. What is different, really, what is this book, Consciousness is All There Is, reveals, is the connection between how something that is non-physical, consciousness, appears as physical, appears as material, appears as objects. So in this book, I bring the link between the non-physical and what appears as physical, and show the continuity of it based on logic and experimentation and common sense and examples and metaphors that puts the world together, that puts the subjective and the objective together as a wholeness of understanding life and living, and the application of all of that for the betterment of life, for flourishing in life, and for life to be lived on a perfect level. Maybe we end up with one more questions that I have here, and those who are fielding questions, we will record them and take them, and then please feel free to let us know what you're asking. Keep asking questions. I see some questions are there, but we will take them in the next session tomorrow. Now, the last question here, which is also very interesting that I see, is does consciousness affect climate change? Absolutely. How does it do it? It does it not in some magical way, which is also possible because life is magical in many ways, but according to laws and to relationships and all of that. And how does it work? It works through us as humans. When we raise our consciousness as humans, naturally we will be doing the right things, not only for climate, but for how to get over the challenges of, for example, artificial intelligence and genetic engineering and all such technologies that can be used in a positive way if they are balanced and if the human awareness, our collective awareness, is raised. So how we change climate, and we have done experiments actually with some of our advanced techniques where we can see changes in the environment also. But what we will see most directly, most effectively, is that humans will find resources, they'll find ways, they'll find technologies to balance the environment without depleting their resources and without having to resort to something that is not healthy for life on Earth and for the environment. So it's not that we have to leave, our power to have energy and all of that, and therefore be afraid that this, changes that are needed for climate change are going to deplete our economy or get us less competitive in the world. We can find solution, and the way to find solution is to broaden our awareness as individuals and broaden our awareness as a society as a whole. And that we can do through raising collective consciousness. So again, it's a joy to be with all of you. Thank you very much, and we meet again. I look forward to you reading the book and helping your friends to read the book, because we want this knowledge out for the well-being of society. And it seems it helps a lot if you make comments when you buy the book and you like the book. Either make comments or give your impressions, how you like it, offer it to your friends. Let's make it as something that is like a grassroots desire to raise consciousness on the level of knowledge and bring the world from being focused on material values, which are fine on their surface level, but if they are devoid of the essence of life, then they are lost on a surface value, and they are leading to conflicts and problems as people try to grab from each other more and more, rather than together enriching each other and using the richness of diversity so that we can have a life of fullness on this beautiful earth that we need to protect. And that will only be protected with clarity of thinking, which is based on clarity and broadness of awareness and broadness of consciousness. Thank you for your questions, actually. They led us to wonderful thoughts and points, and we look forward to continue in the next session, and hopefully you would have had a chance to read the book and maybe make comments about it. Thank you very much.